September 17, 1944, 14,000 feet above Eindhoven, Netherlands. The skies thundered with the largest airborne operation in history. Operation Market Garden had begun. Below, the Dutch countryside was a patchwork of gliders and parachutes, while above, hundreds of P-47 Thunderbolts prowled like metal predators. Their wings, once thought too heavy and clumsy for true air combat, now carried a bomb load that would have seemed impossible just 18 months earlier, nearly half that of a B-17 flying fortress. For the Luftwaffe pilots scrambling to intercept them, this sight represented a revolution they had never imagined. The Americans had turned a brute force interceptor into something entirely new. A universal combat aircraft, a single-seat, single-engine machine that could dogfight, bomb, strafe, and return home without escort. What began as a pragmatic adaptation evolved into a technological and doctrinal revolution that would change warfare forever. When the P-47 Thunderbolt entered combat in April 1943, German intelligence dismissed it as yet another example of American over-engineering. Big, heavy, and inelegant. The aircraft's Pratt & Whitney R-2800 double-wasp radial engine was massive, producing over 2,000 horsepower, but it powered an aircraft weighing twice as much as a Messerschmitt Bf-109. Early combat only reinforced German confidence. The P-47's limited 125-mile range and sluggish climb rate made it an ineffective escort. But what the Luftwaffe didn't realize was that this apparent disadvantage masked an aircraft designed for endurance, punishment, and transformation. The same rugged structure that made it heavy also gave it unmatched resilience. Its steel-tubed fuselage and armor plating allowed it to carry loads that would have torn the wings off most other fighters. By late 1943, American pilots were discovering this potential on their own, strafing rail convoys, fuel depots, and troop columns on return flights from bomber escort missions. The results were devastating. With 850 caliber machine guns spitting out over 12 pounds of lead per second, a P-47 could tear open a locomotive's boiler or obliterate a truck column in seconds. The transformation accelerated in November 1943, when engineers fitted bomb shackles to carry 500-pound bombs beneath the fuselage and wings. On November 25th, the 62nd Fighter Squadron flew the first P-47 bombing mission, destroying hangars and aircraft at a Luftwaffe base in France. What followed was a revolution in design and doctrine. Republic Aviation reinforced the Thunderbolt's wings, rewired its bomb systems, and introduced dive bombing sights that allowed precision strikes from any altitude. By early 1944, the P-47 could carry 10 rockets and 2 1,000-pound bombs, more explosive power than some twin-engine bombers. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, the Luftwaffe finally understood what they were up against. Nearly 2,000 Thunderbolt sorties delivered over 500 tons of bombs and fired 135,000 rounds of ammunition, destroying hundreds of vehicles, locomotives, and gun positions. Luftwaffe ace Günter Rall, with over 275 victories, later admitted that the P-47 was unlike anything he had faced. Its diving speed exceeded 1/400 km/h, far beyond the limits of his Bf-109. When he was shot down by P-47s in May 1944, he realized the tide had turned. What terrified German pilots most was not just the Thunderbolt's firepower, but its adaptability. A P-47 could drop its bombs, instantly revert to a pure fighter, and outfight its attackers. A squadron of 16 P-47s could deliver the same bomb tonnage as 8 B-17s and do so multiple times per day, with a fraction of the crew and cost. The numbers were staggering. The P-47 required 1 pilot and minimal ground crew, while a B-17 required 10 men and extensive support. By August 1944, the Thunderbolt's effectiveness reached its peak during the Falaise Pocket battles. From dawn to dusk, rotating squadrons struck retreating German forces without pause. On August 13th, 112 tanks were destroyed. On August 14th, 287 motor vehicles. On August 15th, 42 locomotives. All verified by ground reconnaissance. Nearly a third of German losses in the pocket came from P-47 attacks. That September, the Thunderbolt received the High-Velocity Aircraft Rocket, or HVAR, a 5-inch rocket capable of punching through a Tiger tank's armor. With 10 of these under its wings, a single P-47 could unleash the firepower of an artillery battalion in one pass. The Battle of the Bulge would showcase its all-weather capability. Even in freezing fog, P-47s equipped with British rocket rails continued striking targets when other aircraft were grounded. Between December 23 and 27, 1944, Thunderbolts destroyed over 2,000 vehicles and nearly 90 locomotives, crippling German mobility. By early 1945, P-47s were performing precision strikes on bridges with 1,000-pound bombs, achieving 50-foot accuracy in near-vertical dives, a feat heavy bombers could only dream of. Even the arrival of the Me-262 jet fighter could not turn the tide. When the jets took off from their long concrete runways, P-47s were already waiting overhead. On March 21, 1945, 8 Me-262s were destroyed on takeoff, more than the Luftwaffe could produce in a week. The Thunderbolt had become the executioner of German logistics. Operation Clarion in March 1945 marked the annihilation of Germany's transportation network. 89 locomotives, over 1,000 railcars, and 17 bridges destroyed in a single day. By then, the P-47 D-25 had evolved into a monster of capability, carrying 3,000 pounds of bombs, firing rockets with zero-length launchers, and powered by engines producing nearly 2,800 horsepower. At its peak, Republic Aviation was building 35 P-47s per day without halting production for redesign, a feat of industrial genius. The Thunderbolt's pilots trained for everything: bombing, dogfighting, rocket attacks, instrument flight, even napalm delivery. By February 1945, P-47s were dropping napalm bombs over German supply depots, creating firestorms that consumed entire forests. The aircraft's versatility became its greatest weapon. In a single day, a P-47 could act as a bomber, a fighter, an artillery spotter, a photo reconnaissance platform, and even a psychological warfare tool. The numbers tell the story of a machine that outperformed its own design. 15,683 P-47s built, over 746,000 combat sorties flown, 132,000 tons of bombs dropped, nearly 224,000 ground targets destroyed. Its air-to-air kill ratio exceeded 4.6 to 1, and its loss rate was less than 1%. It was the most produced American fighter of the war, and perhaps the most misunderstood. Pre-war doctrine had separated fighters and bombers into distinct roles. The P-47 shattered that divide, achieving strategic results through tactical action. By March 1945, German rail traffic had collapsed by 75%, and the Wehrmacht could no longer move in daylight. The Thunderbolt had made mobility itself impossible. Post-war studies confirmed what German commanders already knew, that the P-47's relentless attacks did more to paralyze the Reich than the high-altitude raids of the heavy bombers. The aircraft's success forced a complete rewrite of air combat doctrine. The 1947 U.S. Air Force Manual declared, "All fighters must be capable of ground attack. All attack aircraft must be capable of self-defense." The lesson was clear. Flexibility was the new superiority. From Korea's F-84 Thunderjets to the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the F-4 Phantom, and the F-35 Lightning II, the DNA of the P-47 runs through every multi-role fighter that followed. Even Luftwaffe veterans later admitted that the P-47 had been decisive. Günter Rall himself praised its engineering and reliability. No oil leaks, no fragile systems, just raw durability and power. By 1945, Germany's defeat was sealed not because it lacked aircraft, but because it lacked fuel, airfields, and logistics, all destroyed by Thunderbolts. The P-47 achieved what strategic bombing never could: total paralysis of the enemy's ability to fight. It delivered destruction at 1/6 the cost and 1/10 the manpower of a B-17. The Luftwaffe never expected that an ungainly American fighter could carry half a flying fortress's bomb load, because that idea violated everything they believed about air warfare. But the Americans believed in adaptability, not perfection. The heavy fighter that couldn't turn with a Messerschmitt became the aircraft that turned the tide of the war. In the end, the 7-ton fighter that was never supposed to matter became the symbol of Allied victory. Proof that in modern warfare, it is not the most specialized machine that wins, but the most adaptable one. The Luftwaffe's failure to imagine that transformation cost them the skies and the war itself.